Hi, welcome to Give Me the Bible, where God's Word speaks for itself. Continuing our discussion of baptism, I've heard before from other people that maybe for their own baptism, or maybe when they've witnessed another baptism, the practice they've seen is the practice of pouring water on a person. Or, if it's not just pouring water over their head, maybe it's just sprinkling a person with water. And so we want to kind of address that situation. Is that something that the Lord has said is okay to do and that suffices for baptism? And let me suggest that no, it's not. That's not valid at all. That's not biblical at all. In fact, it's going to be hard to go to a passage to find anything like that, because in the New Testament there are no examples of a person being baptized in which water was just poured on their head or sprinkled on them in some way. That's not how baptism works. In fact, and we mentioned this in the last video, the very word baptism means to dip or to immerse. It's the idea of immersion or dunking underneath water. Okay, so even in the very meaning of the word you don't see that. But here's another helpful way of thinking about this. If we take the metaphor that Paul uses, or the analogy that Paul uses in Romans chapter 6, to talk about the fact that baptism is a burial. Again, a dying to your old self and raising up in newness of life, having been cleansed of those sins. You're a totally new person. That's a helpful analogy, because when a person dies, what do we do? Can you imagine if a person died and to cover them up, we just poured some dirt over them? You know, we just took a shovel and we just kind of poured it along their body like so. Well, you could get most of their body covered, but probably most of their body wouldn't be covered, and they'd still be sitting there on top of the ground. Okay, you'd still have a dead person on top of the ground. It would just be a big lump, a body with dirt poured all over it. Same thing with sprinkling. Can you imagine when a person dies, we just take a handful of dirt and just went like that and sprinkled it on the person? That's not burial at all. No, we recognize, no, we need to dig a giant hole. We need to dig 6 feet under, and we need to put that body down in that grave. That's the analogy that Paul is using in Romans chapter 6. And pouring and sprinkling has nothing to do with that. Because if you're not buried, if your old self is not buried completely and done away with and put to death, then that means your old self is still alive. Really dirt or a little bit of water from baptism, that would just kind of cover you a little bit. That means your old self is just kind of covered. It's not completely covered. It's not completely done away with. No, it needs to be a burial. And again, there's really no passage anywhere that gives us any authority for pouring or sprinkling water in order to receive salvation and the forgiveness of sins. I hope that's crystal clear. Thank you so much for your interest in spiritual things, and Lord willing, I'll see you next time.